Being a NASCAR fan sometimes feels like riding the wildest roller coaster in sports. One minute you are celebrating a great run on track, and the next minute something incredibly small completely changes the story of a race. And this week we actually have two stories that perfectly show why NASCAR is never boring. The first one is about a moment during the race that was decided by something so unbelievably small that a lot of fans are still shaking their heads about it. The second story could lead to a major driver missing a Cup Series race this month, and the team already has multiple backup plans ready just in case things happen at the worst possible moment. Both of these situations involve big names and big consequences, and honestly, they tell you a lot about how unpredictable this NASCAR season is starting to feel. So, you are definitely going to want to hear both of these. And real quick, if you are a true NASCAR fan like me and you follow the sport every single week, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This channel is brand new and we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. The goal here is simple, a place where real NASCAR fans talk about racing the way we actually talk about it. This one involves Bubba Wallace during the NASCAR Cup Series race at Phoenix Raceway. If you watch the race, you know Wallace and the 23X Racing number 23 Toyota were having a really solid day. He eventually finished 6th, which is still a great result considering how competitive the field is right now. But the crazy part is that his result could have been even better if not for one tiny detail on pit road. Bubba Wallace was penalized for speeding on pit road. Now that alone is not unusual. It happens in almost every race because drivers are always pushing the limit. Every fraction of a second matters when you are trying to gain track position. But the difference here is the margin. Wallace was only 0.08 miles per hour over the speed limit. 0.08. That is basically nothing. But NASCAR rules are very clear. If you are over the limit, then you are over the limit. Because of that, Wallace was sent to the tail end of the field, which obviously hurt his track position during the race. If you are Bubba Wallace in that moment, it has to feel like a brutal break. The interesting thing is that he was not the only driver dealing with pit road penalties that day. Two-time Cup Series champions Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson were both caught speeding on pit road as well. That shows just how tricky pit road speed control was during the Phoenix race. But even with those penalties, the weirdest moment of the entire race belonged to Ty Dillon. Dillon received a penalty listed as removing equipment from the assigned pit area. That sounds simple on paper, but what actually happened was something fans watching the race probably will not forget anytime soon. The number 10 car left pit road with the fuel can still attached to the car. Ty Dillon ended up driving an entire lap around the 1-mile oval at Phoenix with that fuel can hanging on the car. It looked absolutely wild on television. Honestly, the biggest relief is that nothing dangerous happened because a situation like that could have turned serious very quickly. The race itself had plenty of chaos, but in the end, Ryan Blaney managed to survive everything and bring the victory home for Team Penske. Still, when people look back at that Phoenix race, one of the biggest talking points will be that incredibly small margin that cost Bubba Wallace a chance at an even better finish. 0.08 miles per hour. That is the kind of detail that shows just how precise NASCAR really is. Now, let's move to the second story, and this one could have a much bigger impact on upcoming races. Bubba Wallace might actually miss a NASCAR Cup Series race this month. The reason has nothing to do with penalties or racing. It has to do with family. Bubba and his wife Amanda are expecting their second child very soon. Earlier this season, Bubba made something very clear. When their first son, Bex, was born, he was not there because of racing commitments. This time, he said he does not want to miss the birth again, and honestly, that is something every fan can understand. However, from a racing standpoint, this creates a complicated situation for 23X in racing because pregnancies are unpredictable. The baby could arrive at any moment. That means the team needs to be ready in case Wallace has to leave during race weekend. Wallace's spotter, Freddie Kraft, talked about this situation on the Door Bumper Clear podcast, and he explained that the team actually has 3 different backup plans. Plan A appears to be Corey Heim. However, there is a complication. Corey Heim and Bubba Wallace do not fit the cockpit the same way, which means the team would need at least a full day of preparation to adjust the car so he could drive the number 23 Toyota. So, if the team knows in advance that Wallace will miss the race, Corey Heim is likely the driver who would replace him. But there is another possibility. If the situation happens suddenly and Amanda goes into labor only a few hours before the race, then Wallace could have to leave immediately. In that scenario, the team would go with another driver who could jump into the car without needing major adjustments. The timing of all this makes things even more interesting. Amanda's due date is around the time of the NASCAR Cup Series race at Darlington Raceway, which takes place on March 22nd. That means Darlington is the race everyone is watching. The next question fans immediately ask is about the championship. What happens if a driver misses a race? Under NASCAR Cup Series rules, drivers normally need to compete in every race in order to remain eligible for the championship and the playoffs. However, NASCAR does allow waivers under certain circumstances, and the birth of a child is one of the situations where a waiver is likely. We saw something similar recently when Denny Hamlin missed the Cup Series race in Mexico City in 2025, and NASCAR still granted him a waiver so he remained eligible for the championship. Because of that precedent, it is very likely that Bubba Wallace would receive the same waiver if he misses a race because of the birth of his child. And honestly, that feels like the right decision. When you step back and look at both of these stories together, it really shows how unpredictable NASCAR can be. One moment, a driver loses track position because of 0.08 miles per hour on pit road. The next moment, that same driver might have to step out of the car completely because he is about to become a father again. That is NASCAR. Tiny margins, huge moments, and real life happening right in the middle of it all. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think the penalty for Bubba Wallace at Phoenix was too harsh, or do you agree that rules are rules when it comes to pit road speed? And if Wallace ends up missing the Darlington race, do you think Corey Heim is the right driver to replace him in the number 23 car? Let me know what you think in the comments, because NASCAR fans always have strong opinions about situations like this. And if you enjoyed this kind of real NASCAR conversation, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel, NASCAR Nation Report. The channel is still brand new and we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. The goal is simple, a place where real NASCAR fans talk honestly about the sport every single week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.